Joining us on the show today, we have Marla Puckett. Marla is a certified credit counselor who recently celebrated 20 years with MMI. She has helped countless people reach their financial goals. She is praised by her clients, past and present, for her compassionate approach to any and every situation. Marla, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Adam.
Well, I'm real excited to talk to you because you have just this amazing breadth of knowledge and experience. And you've got, I have seen a few quotes from some of your clients and they do really love you. So let's get started with you. Tell us a little bit more about you. Where do you live? What do you do? What do your days look like?
So I live in Chesterfield, Virginia, right outside of Richmond. Been here about 12 years. I've been credit counseling, like you said, about 20 years now, a little over 20. I started off with a really small agency that was in Maryland, Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina. And then through mergers, I ended up about 5 years ago with MMI, and this is home. MMI is hands down the best agency to work for. So
I love that. So, all right. So you're celebrating 20 years in this. I mean, it's pretty rare that someone stays in a profession for 20 years. So there's got to be like some real good reasons behind that. Like walk me like why this profession for 20 years?
So before this, in my past life, I worked in banking and finance. I was a teller supervisor. I worked for a finance company, did lending, collections, management, and it never really felt right. Especially because I worked for a higher risk lender and we were charging exorbitant interest rates and had high goals to try to make those loans. And it got to the point where I wasn't sleeping well at night, making these loans for folks. And then 2 months later, having to call to collect on the payment that wasn't being made. So I saw an ad in the paper for a credit counselor. And I said, you know what, this is really going to be a good fit. I have my degree in psychology. So having that background made my parents very happy when I went into credit counseling because they didn't waste their money on my degree. But long story short, as we say, I am now doing this. I love it. I love helping people get out of debt, educating them on budgeting and finances, and just getting to do what I love.
So, all right. So I would imagine that a huge part of your job is listening. Is that accurate? And like, what role does listening play in sort of how you're able to help people?
Yeah, absolutely. Just like any kind of counseling, you have to be a good listener to hear what's going on. You know, we want to learn what their habits are, good and bad. We want to learn, what their mistakes are so that we can help them to correct them and get them moving in the right direction.
I'm just curious, like after 20 years of really patiently listening to people, I wonder if do you have any advice about listening, how we can be better listeners? I mean, that's just a random question. I'm just curious if you have any advice on that.
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I tend to be a talker. And that's okay, but you have to listen and more importantly, hearing what they're saying beneath the surface. People can talk and, you just hear blah, 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 but listening to what they're saying and trying to find that root cause, what's really going on deep down is where you really want to focus your attention.
Let's talk about kind of the work that you've done. What advice would you have for individuals or families with growing debt that might be nervous about reaching out to MMI?
So I tell my clients all the time, this is going to be the hardest phone call that you've ever made. And it's going to be the easiest thing that you've done once you've hung up. Because, my job is to help you sleep at night, to help you get through this stress that is making it so difficult. And, I always have, a couple of little things I like to say to my clients. And I usually get these from my clients. I've had clients tell me in the past, this is debt, not death. I've had clients tell me you can't get orange juice from a grape. I love these sayings because they're literally from the mouth of babes. We're hearing this from the clients, and this is how they're able to kind of deal with it. And from talking with me, and they're able to verbalize those things, and I back them up on, that train of thought.
Oh, I love that. I love that. So I'm curious then, across thousands of conversations, are there some common things that you hear that maybe you could share with us that people need to kind of watch out for in their own, journeys through financial, personal living?
Yeah, sure. So I hear a lot. I didn't get into debt by shopping. I didn't go buy this. I didn't go do that. It was for needs. I had to put food on the table. I had to do this. I had to, get gas in the car. And it ended up just getting out of control. So at that point, we want to kind of shift the focus to budgeting and seeing, their needs versus their wants. And, it was a little different when I worked in a branch and I was able to see their actual billing statements, because they would bring in their statements and I could see where, they were spending their money. And if I saw, restaurant after restaurant, things like that, then we would have the talk about shifting that focus from going out to cooking at home or having potlucks with your friends or whatever options were out there to try to help them curb that
need, that desire, that spending.
That's it. To curb the desire to spend.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. No, I totally understand. Okay. I love that. And any other like typical things that you see or a typical like advice that you give throughout this process?
So, typically I'm going to tell my clients the hardest part of doing anything is starting it, whether it's starting a budget. And a budget can be as simple or as complicated as you want it to be. A lot of times I don't even like to use the word budget because it causes a lot of anxiety. I'll use the word spending plan because that sounds a little softer, not quite as stress invoking. And so we want to, focus on where their money's going, how we can get it shifted around to go into the right places, and how they can do that on their own with my support.
I love that. I love the spending plan. Okay. I'm going to, next time I need to talk to my kids, I'm going to talk about their spending plan for this summer. That's going to be great. It's going to be so helpful. Okay. So then let's talk a little bit about consumer debt, right? So we talk a lot on this show about how consumer debt is so common, and yet we don't have conversations around it. There's this stigma around debt. And getting out of debt. Can you talk a little bit about like how you think MMI is fighting against that? How you're helping clients fight against that? Like, how do you advise people about that?
Sure. I tell people they're in a big boat with a lot of people. They are not alone in this situation. There are thousands and thousands of people that are in debt and they're struggling. I let them know I talk to an average of 5 to 7 people a day that are dealing with the same situation. And, if you count that times the number of counselors in my agency, it's huge. So we're helping so many people that are all dealing with the same situation, although they may have different, circumstances that brought them into that situation.
Yeah. So, all right. So across a whole career of helping people, I'm just curious, are there any stories that stand out that you'd be able to share with us? Of course, without betraying any kind of confidence, but anything that you're able to share?
Sure. So I remember this was a number of years ago. I had a couple that came into my office, and you could tell by their body language that there was not good communication. They were sort of sitting back to back, shoulder to shoulder, not really turned in to, face each other. And when one of the spouses went out to go get a drink of water or whatever, the other spouse reached into their purse and grabbed out a handful of bills and says, "They don't know about this. Can you please go through this while they're out?" So I did. I took care of it, but I emphasized how important it is to communicate, because money issues, number one issue when it comes to, divorce nowadays. A lot of folks just are not communicative about it. And again, it goes back to that stigma. They don't want their spouse or their family or anybody to know that they're struggling with this. However, you have to rely on these people to support you emotionally, to help you with, because there is that emotional piece to it. and you have to work together, as a team to get the situation taken care of, because you can't do it on your own if you're in a marriage.
Yeah. Well, I mean, or if you have kids that, spend any kind of money, like they need to be a part of that conversation as well.
Absolutely.
So that they're not, constantly running through the drive-through or driving all over the place and having huge gas bills or whatever else. So,
absolutely. We call that tough love.
Yeah, that's right. Tough love is a good thing. It's certainly a good thing. Okay. Well, so Marla, I do have a little surprise for you today. So I believe it might have been your manager let me know that MMI is going to be nominating you for the NFCC Counselor of the Year award this summer.
My goodness.
So, and they were kind enough to send me just a couple of quotes. So I'm going to read a few of these to you. Hope you don't mind. A little embarrassment for you. So just a couple of quotes from your customers. One was, Marla Puckett is the most wise and compassionate credit counselor you could ever wish for. She listened silently to my mother as my mother spoke about her credit issues. And then Marla laid out a plan to solve those issues. I can't say enough about Marla. That's pretty great. And then one more. In the beginning, it was very stressful, but got better after speaking to Marla for a while. She was able to get my payment down to a point I was comfortable with on a monthly basis. A creditor had made the ordeal very stressful for me. Things are better now. So you are helping so many people and making such an impact. It's
that tears me up.
Isn't that exciting?
Yes, that's awesome.
I don't know if there's a public vote, but if there's any kind of public vote, I'm going to vote for you for sure. So,
well, thank you.
I don't know how that works, but Marla, I love the work that you're doing. It's so important, so profound and impactful and helpful to so many people. I mean, you just said yourself, you talk to 5 to 7 people a day, and I can't imagine how much better their days are after they have a conversation with you. I think they probably start that conversation very nervous and a little scared, and they end it probably very encouraged and feeling under control.
Absolutely. Yeah. They come into me and they honestly don't know why they're calling me sometimes. They're referred by a creditor. They transferred me to you. I don't know what I need to do. And so, I try to set them at ease from the get-go so that the conversation flows very smoothly.
Well, you're obviously amazing at what you do. I'm so happy to get to talk to you just a little bit. Do you have any final words of advice for our listeners before we end our chat today?
So anytime you guys are feeling that stress, that pinch, just call us. It doesn't hurt. It helps. And your life will be easier once you've just spoken with myself or one of my coworkers.
That's right. Absolutely. This guest is a real MMI client whose success is the result of hard work and dedication. While MMI cannot guarantee results, taking early action can increase available options and improve long-term outcomes. Thanks for listening to this episode of Long Story Short, brought to you by Money Management International. To learn more about how MMI helps people from all walks of life get unstuck and out of the vicious cycle of debt through personalized solutions that inspire hope, visit moneymanagement.org. This episode was produced by Edgewise.media. Script writing and production by Clara Jennings, editing by Brandon Ellis, and show hosting by me, Adam Walker.